The flight attendant's voice cut through the cabin, rising sharply enough for everyone to hear. "I'm going to ask you one last time. Move to the back of the plane, or I will call security." Her words rang with an icy edge, dripping with condescension, her tone a weapon meant to assert control. Naomi Carter, a calm and composed black woman in her late 30s, lifted her gaze from the window. Her expression remained serene, almost serene enough to disarm. "I've already told you. I'm not moving," she responded, her words simple yet firm, her voice steady and unwavering. It carried an undeniable weight, one that commanded attention. There was no trace of fear in her demeanor, no sign of distress. She had been humiliated in front of the other passengers, but no one could have predicted what would happen next. The woman they assumed was powerless was about to reveal just how wrong they were. Before we dive deeper into this tale, if you believe everyone should be treated with respect regardless of their background, click the subscribe button and let us know where you're watching from. The plane itself was a gleaming symbol of luxury, its sleek design reflecting the afternoon sun like a precious gem. Inside, the opulence matched its exterior: plush leather seats, gleaming gold accents, and an atmosphere of exclusivity that made everyone inside feel like royalty. Passengers moved with a quiet grace, their designer luggage rolling smoothly behind them as they made their way toward the private jet parked on the tarmac. Soon, they were settled in, some scrolling through their devices, others leisurely sipping champagne served by an attentive flight crew. The hum of ambient music filled the air as the atmosphere inside became a carefully crafted oasis of calm and privilege. Among the passengers sat Naomi Carter, dressed in a perfectly tailored navy blazer and matching slacks. She exuded understated elegance. Her every movement spoke of quiet confidence. Though she made no effort to draw attention to herself, Naomi wasn't here for attention. She was here on a mission, overseeing her growing empire. She had learned long ago that power often lay in restraint. At this moment, no one on board knew who she was, and Naomi preferred it that way. Lauren Pierce, the lead flight attendant, stood near the entrance. Her crisp uniform was a perfect reflection of her controlled demeanor, and her sharp features were a constant reminder that she was in charge. Her welcoming smile was practiced, almost mechanical, and for Naomi, noticeably colder. Naomi observed her quietly as the others filed in, each passenger receiving a warm greeting, save for Naomi, who received only a terse acknowledgement. "Welcome aboard," Lauren said, her voice a little colder than it had been for the others, as if Naomi was somehow less deserving of pleasantries. Naomi glanced briefly over her shoulder, noticing the difference in Lauren's treatment of other passengers. Mr. and Mrs. Raymond, a couple in their 60s, were greeted with a brightness Naomi had not received. Lauren's smile was wide and genuine as she greeted them. "Good morning, Mr. and Mrs. Raymond. Lovely to have you with us again." Naomi's expression remained calm, but her sharp eyes registered the silent, unspoken dynamics at play. As passengers settled in, Lauren weaved her way through the cabin, ensuring everything was in place. When she reached the Raymonds, she offered them an exaggeratedly polite smile. "Is there anything I can get for you before we take off?" Mrs. Raymond shook her head politely, already absorbed in her knitting, while Mr. Raymond gave a slight nod toward his coffee, signaling his satisfaction. But when Lauren reached Naomi, her demeanor shifted once again. Naomi's bag sat neatly under her seat, but Lauren's eyes narrowed slightly. Without a word, Lauren passed Naomi by, offering neither a smile nor any form of courtesy. Have you ever been in a situation where someone treated you differently based on your appearance? Share your experience in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe for more stories like this. Lauren Pierce, in her early 40s, was a woman who prided herself on precision. Her uniform was immaculate, her hair perfectly styled, and her attitude sharp enough to cut glass. Appearances were everything to Lauren, and her judgments were swift, unapologetic, and almost always influenced by the way people looked. Something about Naomi set her on edge, though Naomi didn't look like the usual passengers Lauren catered to. Her calm self-assurance and quiet elegance didn't fit the mold of who Lauren believed belonged in the exclusive section of the plane. Lauren approached Naomi, her heels clicking sharply against the floor. Her lips curled into a tight, almost patronizing smile. "Excuse me, ma'am," she said, her voice polite but dripping with disdain. "I think you're in the wrong section." Naomi looked up slowly, her gaze steady. "I believe this is my seat," she replied simply, her tone measured and firm. Lauren's smile didn't waver, but there was a sudden edge to her voice. "I don't think so. This section is reserved for our elite passengers." As the conversation escalated, passengers began to take notice. A nosy socialite sitting nearby leaned slightly to get a better view. Her curiosity piqued. A businessman across the aisle raised an eyebrow, frowning at Lauren's tone. Naomi remained unfazed, her eyes steady. "You might want to double-check the passenger list before making assumptions," she said, her voice calm but resolute. Lauren's eyebrows shot up in disbelief, her irritation palpable. "I don't need to check anything," she snapped. "I know who belongs here and who doesn't." A few passengers exchanged glances, whispers rippling through the cabin. One muttered, "Why doesn't she just move?" while another shrugged, "She's probably just trying to sneak in for a free upgrade." Lauren, not backing down, crossed her arms and raised her voice. "If you don't move to the back of the plane, I'll have to call security." Naomi tilted her head slightly, her expression unwavering. "Call whoever you need to," she said softly, her words carrying more weight than Lauren had anticipated. The tension in the cabin thickened as Lauren turned to the junior flight attendant, Grace, who stood nearby watching nervously. "Grace," Lauren snapped, "escort her to the back. Now." Grace hesitated, her eyes flickering between Naomi and Lauren. She wanted to speak up, wanted to suggest checking the passenger list just as Naomi had recommended. But the venomous glare Lauren shot her silenced her. With a reluctant nod, Grace stepped forward. Naomi, still calm and composed, shifted slightly in her seat. "You might want to think carefully about what you're doing," she said quietly, her words carrying a quiet but powerful warning. Lauren scoffed, dismissing Naomi's words with a wave of her hand. "I know exactly what I'm doing," she retorted, gesturing for Naomi to stand. "Now get up." As the passengers watched, the tension in the air became almost tangible. Naomi remained seated, her gaze unwavering as she responded simply, "I'm not moving." The nosy socialite, her perfectly coiffed hair and air of entitlement all too obvious, leaned toward her companion, whispering loudly enough for others to hear. "Looks like she's trying to sneak in for a free ride." Lauren's smirk returned as she seized on the comment. Addressing the other passengers, "That's exactly what it looks like," she said, turning to the crowd as if rallying them behind her. "We have rules for a reason. Some people just don't respect them." Naomi didn't respond to the whispers or the insults. Instead, her gaze remained steady on Lauren, her quiet defiance a louder statement than any words could express. As the tension mounted, Grace hesitated, moving toward the passenger list clipped near the cockpit door. Her fingers trembled as she searched the names, hoping for something that might help Naomi. But before she could speak, Lauren's voice sliced through the air. "Grace, what are you doing?" she barked, her tone harsh. "I was just checking," Grace murmured, barely above a whisper. Lauren interrupted her with a sharp command. "I've got this under control. You don't need to get involved." Grace stepped back, her face flushed with embarrassment.